Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll call the April 5th Select Board meeting to order. We will be needing to do roll call votes tonight because I'm not present. I don't think there's any changes to the agenda, except that one thing is coming off of pending contracts, which we'll detail when we get to that. In terms of announcements, the meeting is being audio and video recorded. Does anyone have any opening announcements or comments from the Select Board?
Don,
Go ahead, my dear. Go ahead.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Housing Advocacy Day last week in Boston. We had 250 vineyarders and about 60 Nantucketers who descended on the State House as a group, all wearing the same T-shirts. Really a huge visual impact as we were meandering around the State House and talking to different legislators and their staff. The organizers had set up individual meetings with some key legislators and or their staff. And what I found most interesting was how surprised they were to hear about the realities of people's lives on our islands, and the challenges that people face, and that their perceptions of these islands, as tourist destinations, and the reality of those of us who live here and some of us who struggle greatly with this really deepening housing crisis. And so it felt really productive and energizing, and we got a lot of media, TV, radio. I was getting text messages from all of my folks and family in the Boston area and beyond who were reading about it and super excited to hear that we'd gotten some attention. So we say this every year with the Housing Bank bill, but Tucker, would you agree you feel like there's more energy at the State House around this? I think probably the most significant thing was that we were invited to sit in the Senate chamber, which is an unusual opportunity. And the Senate President Karen Spilka came and spoke to us. And the fact that someone at her level at the State House took the time to come and speak to our group says that we've got their attention more this time around. And I'm very optimistic that we might get there this time.
I heard Tucker is almost guaranteeing it. Is that true, Tucker?
No, Julian's guaranteeing.
Julian's guaranteeing it. Okay.
Great to hear. Did Malcolm have something as well?
Yes, this is the first night of Passover, and I suggest that next year we don't hold a meeting if it occurs on a Wednesday.
Good suggestion.
And I've got one too, Don.
Yes.
We've had a couple emails from people asking for the Board of Selectmen to have a policy that has participation on, so people off island can still participate on all our boards and commissions. They don't feel they should have to make it all the way to Nantucket. And there is some concern that their voices aren't being heard. I think it's one of the good things that has come out of COVID is that this works and it helps us build consensus and have everyone involved. So at a future meeting, I'd like to discuss that. And I would advise anyone that is running a board to try to do that, please. So, because I think it would really be helpful. And I think people assume that there's, funny business going on, even when there isn't, because they're like, oh, they don't even want to hear from us and they don't want to hear it. And so I think it would get rid of some of that. So I hope that we talk about that and implement it if possible. Thank you.
I definitely agree that the remote participation is important. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here tonight. But I think there was some confusion because the governor hadn't signed the continuation when some things were posted. But anything else from the board? And you guys will have to kind of alert me because it's hard for me to see you when you've got your hands raised. I don't believe there's any follow-up from prior select board meetings, so we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room with their hand raised?
There is not, but you have one remote.
Yes, Megan Perry.
Hi, guys. Thank you for taking my call. I'm sure you're all sick of me calling in, and frankly, I'm kind of sick of calling in on this matter myself. 10 weeks ago, I first came before this board regarding the missed CMP permit and the 21-day appeal period for Surfside Crossing. That was the same CMP that was received and no action was taken by 3 different town departments, all of which on some level report to the town manager, who in turn reports to this board. So of those 7 meetings that occurred in the 10 weeks given for vacation and whatnot, 4 of those meetings, the board has approved the meeting minutes. So you're all aware, whether you heard me speaking at public comment or not, you approve the meeting minutes where I am on there during public comment. And so I won't take time explaining what each public comment was, but essentially it was, I was asking for something to be done, whether it be an action plan, a policy, an explanation for the board to look into this missed permit and missed appeal period that deprived the public of our abilities to appeal, deprived the town, deprived Land Council, Nantucket Tipping Point, because nobody was notified for it or about it. So last week, the select board voted 4-1 that they were satisfied with what the town manager had done in response to the missed CMP. And so out of all of those meetings, out of the 7 meetings, 6 of those meetings, the response I essentially got was thank you, Megan. The 7th one, I got a thanks. So a little bit different, but close. So then I asked, could I receive a copy of the email that had gone out regarding what the town manager had done and how we were going to prevent another whoopsies from happening. And that was at the March 22nd, 2023 meeting last week. And through one of those silly public records requests that I do, and I get ridiculed for quite a bit, I came to find out that the email regarding the what to do if you received a state permit to all department heads was actually sent out on March 24th, 2023 at 9:07 a.m. So that was well after my first ask, February 1st. And actually after the board said that they were satisfied with what had been done. And what was sent out says, in quotes, all, in lieu of the recent events, Surfside Crossing, Natural Heritage Permit, please forward any and all state or other permits your department may receive to the town manager at town manager's address. Thank you. And so I guess my problem here is you're satisfied or this is adequate. Why are we settling for satisfied or adequate on this? In the US academic grading system, satisfied is a C. Why are we striving for C? Why are we not striving for excellence? A satisfactory grade is a 2.0 on a 4.0 scale. Many of town employees' contracts state that if town employees want to do continuing ed, they're entitled to reimbursement if the employee receives a 2.5 or above grade. So even their contracts require more than a satisfactory grade. And I guess when you're looking at real estate property, does anyone ever describe it as adequate or satisfactory? When you're hiring a doctor to perform open heart surgery, do you choose the one that's adequate or satisfactory? So this board, it has a listed mission, and on the town website, the mission of the board is to serve the community by providing clear, concise goals and policies that ensure quality in the delivery of town services, long-term planning, and improved efficiencies in operating town government. If that's your mission, the ball was dropped. The ball was dropped on the CMP, the ball was dropped on the follow-up, the ball's been dropped on a couple of things. The community puts our faith and our vote with you guys. The buck stops with the select board. So in an attempt to rectify this, I would implore the board to file a motion to stay. Try to make things a little bit better. I'm asking the select board to file in Nantucket Superior Court after tomorrow's executive session a stay of no building of Surfside Crossing until the case is decided in Nantucket Superior Court. One of the reasons for this is because this project has never been seen or heard by any board on Nantucket until this case will be heard in court. So that might be some way that you could try to attempt to rectify 3 departments missing this CMP and not allowing the community to have any appeal on it. That's my first ask. The town has the standing on this to do this. You're supposed to be representing our entire community. So it would be great if you could step up to the plate and represent the constituents on that. On a side note, similar to one of the comments Matt made earlier, I've inquired with the Plus department, the same department who received the CMP but did nothing with it, specifically to the ZBA listed email regarding the upcoming April 13th meeting. I went through the proper channels, the listed methods for communication to ask my question. And it was a question that's gone unanswered for almost 2 weeks now. And so I'm curious, how is the public supposed to communicate with a board when the staff is still filtering information sent to that board? I can guarantee you that my email was not an informational email. It 100% has to do with Plus. It is a Plus matter. I actually called into those meetings and raised my hand, and there's not a public comment on the ZBA. I called into the February 9th one. There's no public comment there. So I'm not able to communicate to the board and ask a question. I'm just wondering, why is it so hard for the public to communicate with the town's government? And this is a prime example of repetitive ineptitude and acts of negligence regarding it. The town's hired 2 different PR firms with taxpayer funds to help with this, and I don't think it's helping. So I know this is long, and I appreciate all of you listening. I just want you to know it's very frustrating. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to a response.
Okay, are there any other public comments this evening?
Hey, did I miss something? We don't have executive session tomorrow, do we, Dawn?
We do not, Matt. It's next
It's
week.
next week.
It's next week.
That's there was nothing posted for tomorrow. We had already rescheduled for next week.
All right, I thought I was missing something. Thank you.
Caroline Baltzer.
Sorry, hold on.
Thank you very much. My question is addressed to the chair of the board. I wanted to say that I saw that the agenda for today includes a presentation by Granicus regarding the status of the short-term rental discussion. And I wanted to see if the select board has been made aware of the fact that the short-term rental working group has already rejected the same data analysis by Granicus back in December of 2022. Wow. Due to its clear violations of statistical reliability and validity.
Caroline, thank you. I was remiss in saying that when things are otherwise on our agenda for discussion, that public comment's not the right time, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But thank you for the comment anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other public comments? There's no new business. Approval of minutes, warrants, payroll warrants and treasury warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Matt Fee.
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Which was the pending contract that's off, Erica or Libby?
It's the sale between the fire department and John Finney.
Okay.
Sales agreement.
So if there aren't any other questions, does someone want to make a motion just without that one item?
I'll make a motion that all but the Finney are approved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Matt Fee.
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Thank you. Next up, we do have that short-term rental registration update from Granicus.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate the board's time and giving me the opportunity here to share an update on the status of the implementation for a NanTukit. I do have a presentation that I provided to the board. Am I able to share my screen, or what would be the best
I can
solution?
pull it up unless you want to do it yourself. I've got it ready.
Perfect. I'll have you pull it up, and I'll just follow along with my notes,
Okay, give me 1 second.
of course.
You see that okay? Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can see it. Thank you so much. Alrighty, so just an outline of the agenda for today. I will touch on who Granicus is, what we do, and the communities that we affect. I will go into showing some examples of other jurisdictions around the New England area who are also using some form of a digital solution by Granicus. I'll go through the breakdown as to why we're working with the town of Nantucket and specifically the objectives surrounding short-term rentals within your community. And then I'll go through a breakdown of where those listings are being advertised. And then finally, I'll go through an outline of the platform that your jurisdiction is leveraging and the models that we're using. And finally, I will wrap up with looking at a list of accomplishments, what we've already done for the town of Nantucket, and then what is coming for the next stage. Okay, so starting with who is Granicus, so why we're here. So Granicus is transforming how government and people connect digitally. Through our experienced consultants, implementations, robust software, we really want to drive the meaningful change for communities all around the globe. So not just exclusive to the United States. We provide solutions that are purpose-built for government at the local level, the state level, and all the way up to the federal level. And essentially, our goal is to improve that collaboration between governments and the constituents that they serve by streamlining and simplifying those processes that will enhance the user experience while also increasing efficiency for the government. So we do all of this while committed to staying at the forefront of security through successful completion of certification and accreditation reviews by leading federal government organizations, including FedRAMP, the United States Department of Homeland Security, Department of the Treasury, and countless others that are available listed on our website. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just a screen grab from our website that just gives an overview of how many governments we serve, where we're located, and the citizens that have had some form of engagement with Granicus. So as you can see, we support over 6,000 customers, jurisdictions of all sizes. We have offices located in the United States as well as around the globe. And again, we've been able to engage with over 300 million citizens through a variety of different platforms that Granicus offers. And then the next slide, please. So looking more on a regional scale, these 15 jurisdictions have all leveraged a Granicus platform in some way, whether that's service-related, record-keeping, communication, something else that we offer. We do have a list of those services and what we provide on our website. But this is just to show the relevance that, yes, we are here, we're helping out the town of Nantucket, but we've also been able to reach these different jurisdictions within New England. Okay, next, please. So then looking at the topic of short-term rentals, these are some common objectives that we've laid out when it comes to what's most important to a local government and how these jurisdictions are impacted by the short-term rental operations. So as I mentioned before, we provide solutions that are purpose-driven. So we want to know what you care about in your community, both on the government and on the citizen constituent side, and how we can effectively act upon those objectives. So these are just a few that I've selected, looking at housing availability, preserving the integrity of the neighborhood, the quality of life, economic development, as well as safety. Next, please. So based on our analysis, we we're able to find that most of your short-term rental listings are advertised on Expedia, followed by Airbnb and TripAdvisor. So these are certainly not exclusive of the short-term rental listing websites that exist, but these were just some of the most common we found with the town of Nantucket. Okay, next, please. So getting even more detailed into why Granicus is here and what we're doing for Nantucket. So we offer a complete platform to help address the short-term rental challenges within your community. And at the core of our GovService host compliance product offering, if you notice, we have what's called address identification. So that foundation really enables that communication with hosts, and it powers our full suite of the modules you see above that would help manage any additional challenges posed by short-term rentals. So going through each of these briefly, compliance monitoring, there is giving the jurisdiction here the ability to engage with the community through systematic outreach by sending letters. The permitting and registration process, we are looking to digitize that and make it a lot easier for the constituent, but also on the back line to manage those permits that are coming through to register your property as a short-term rental. We do offer a tax collection service that Nantucket is not leveraging at this time. We do have a 24/7 hotline that I'm most excited about for the community, which I'll touch on the very next slide. We also have the rental activity monitoring and consulting services. So these are just additional products that Nantucket is using just to address those objectives I mentioned in the previous slides of how to make the short-term rental community and operation equal across the playing field for Nantucket. You can go to the final slide, please. Okay. So these are the accomplishments and the plans of what has been done and what is planned for the next stage. So starting with what has been accomplished. So we've been able to identify the properties that are operating as short-term rentals in Nantucket. The specifications unique to the Nantucket short-term rental ordinance has been communicated. I do recognize a few names here with some of our board members I've had correspondence with back and forth. So we understand that setting up a short-term rental ordinance and process is not a one-size-fits-all. So we really want to make sure that what we're setting up is unique to Nantucket and will work for the government as well as the citizens. The systematic outreach I mentioned previously through that letter communication with property owners has been complete, but that I do want to note that has not been actively implemented quite yet. The hotline platform I also touched on before has been created for community engagement regarding short-term rental issues. So this is really giving the constituents the ability to have their voice heard. We have a hotline platform where citizens are able to call in and put in different issues that they are encountering with short-term rentals. There is also a web service. We really want to increase that collaboration between community and your local government. So having that platform where your government can address those challenges, I think will be beneficial for everybody. And looking more on an administrative side, we've provided guided training and resources to the Nantucket administration that we've been working with. And this is not something that ends as soon as the implementation ends. We continue to provide those resources and support should your government have any questions or concerns with the ordinance. And finally, looking forward, we are looking to digitize that registration process to apply and renew the short-term rental permits. With that, we will be enacting an online payment solution to provide those citizens the option beyond just cash and check. We understand that there are a lot of property owners who might not reside on the island, so giving them the ability to conduct a lot of this business digitally is a main goal. We are working on an outreach program for the community awareness and education, which includes an updated website organization. So we want it to be a priority that the community is educated on the upcoming process and the upcoming project that we have here. So we'll continue to post those updates to the Nantucket website as we build upon them. The expected rollout of this complete solution we have projected for June of this year. But as I mentioned before, we strategically want to roll out the solution as one packaged solution, for the community. That way, everyone is starting, at the same base, the same playing field. And with that, I do have from your administration that enforcement is set to begin on January 1st of next year. So I understand there are probably a lot of questions from the public or from the board when it comes to Granicus and this ordinance and the implementation that we are working on. I encourage you to visit granicus.com for questions about our company, to educate you on some of the services that we provide and some of our client testimonials. And when it comes to information regarding the ordinance unique to Nantucket, information will continually be added to the website. And that is something that we're continuing to build upon with the outreach. And that is all I have. So thank you again to the board for your time and sharing the presentation and allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Does the board members have questions?
I have a quick one. Where would I find the Nantucket information on the Granicus site?
So we don't have information unique to Nantucket posted on our Granicus website, if I'm understanding your question correctly. We are working with members of your board to really customize and personalize the outreach. So whenever updates are made to the website of Nantucket, we'll make sure to publicize those and alert your community through your different communication channels.
Okay, thank you. So there's not like a Nantucket page, separate Nantucket page. Eventually there will be on our site, I'm assuming.
Correct. Eventually, that is part of the digitizing the permitting and registration process. Nantucket will have essentially their own website where your constituents can go to apply, register for the permits. It's the same portal, if you will, for the back end. So while we are rolling this out for your constituents, we're also digitizing the process and wanting to streamline a lot of the steps with the backline and the folks that will be involved with approving those applications, verifying the information that's submitted. So yes, that portal is currently being built, and that is the first bullet point on looking forward. And from my understanding, this presentation will be available on your website, or it'll be available wherever you post your meeting minutes.
Yes. Brooke?
Yeah. So I wanted to comment as a follow-up to what Caroline Balzer was saying in public comment, that I want to clarify to the public that this project is about setting up the system for registration and enforcement for the existing bylaw that comes under the health department. That is separate and distinct from any future zoning or regulatory bylaws that are being worked on by the short-term rental work group. And that group has a different data project that is separate and distinct from Granicus's project here. So they're two separate efforts with different vendors doing the work. So I just wanted to clarify because it sounded like there might have been some confusion about what this is.
Thank you, Brooke. That's exactly what I was about to say too.
Thanks, Roberta. I was kind of confused by the slide that talked about the booking platforms, because it didn't give any recognition to how much is booked locally through real estate offices. It just made it felt misleading to me. It made it look like Expedia does the most business on Nantucket, which I don't think is true. So I'm just not sure why everything wasn't included.
Sure. So I worked on this in collaboration with the sales department. I work exclusively in implementation as a project manager. So I actually received this information from the sales department, but I do understand how that could have been interpreted. Is there something I could clarify for you on that slide now, or?
Maybe you could follow up with the sales department and see how they're getting that data, because it just seems like there's a lot missing.
Sure, absolutely.
I do have a couple of hands raised from the public. If
Don, real quick.
Yeah.
I think that data was the missing data that the NARAB and the work group is putting together now, and will be added once that's, that'll be added to that slide once it's collected and sorted. And that's the person that we approved the last week or the week before will be doing that. So I think it will be corrected eventually, but not through Granicus.
I hope so, because it's really misleading the way that looks.
Don, as a follow-up comment, if I may, Alex, if you could pass back to your team the question of in your enforcement role under this contract, in terms of ensuring that all properties are registered, you're looking at available online data from digital platforms for short-term rentals. And I'm not looking for an answer today, but I'd love someone to respond about how you will, if you have any plans for connecting with the realtors who are doing short-term rentals without using digital platforms, and how enforcement would work with that cohort of rentals that you're not going to find through scrubbing the internet. And you don't need to answer that today, but I think it's an important question.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And if I can ask a clarifying question, just so I understand, are you saying that you have real estate agents within Nantucket who are advertising properties as short-term rentals, not on a digital platform?
Yes, probably the
They're
majority.
on their own digital platform. I'm actually in the real estate business, to disclose, but I'm just making sure that the proper information is being presented to the public. But yes, all of the real estate offices have their own websites, but you can't necessarily see what's being booked. So how are you going to get out all that?
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a few public questions. Let's just try and keep these somewhat brief, because this is an update and nothing to do really with the short-term rental work groups work right now. Mike Hurley.
Dawn, I think you've all answered mine. I was wondering where the real estate data was.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So thank you, Matt, Dawn, and Brooke.
Thanks, Mike. Kathleen Baird.
Yeah, just to follow up on that slide as well, really quickly. The STR, the TripAdvisor ones are kind of curious to me. I don't know anybody who books through them. They mostly they scrape the other platforms, and then if you go to look underneath TripAdvisor, you'd see your listing under VRBO, and that's where you actually go book. So I think that 27% where that slide was is also misleading. So I think just if you could pass that back as well to the leadership. Second question I have was, I don't know anybody who's has gotten a letter yet. And I think what I heard you say, I just want to clarify, was that your facility for sending out letters from a technology point of view, you've implemented, but you haven't really sent any letters yet. Is that true?
Yes, that is true for Nantucket. So we have everything prepared as far as the template for the letters and the criteria for sending those letters to short-term rental owners. That was something that was discussed with the board, select members of the board who are working with me on the project. We have not sent out any letters, or we've not initiated that process yet, because it's not complete. The implementation hasn't been complete, and we don't want to deliver a solution to Nantucket that's not complete, and that essentially would be, just confusing or create more questions.
Okay, I just saw that on your completed list, so that's why I was confused on that. And what addresses are you using to mail these to people?
Kathy, just try and do the questions through me so it doesn't get too
I'm
confusing.
sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and answer that if you can.
Yeah, so we will be working with the property owner's address. So if the property owner does not reside in Nantucket, if they reside in Boston or another state around the area, the letter will be sent to the property owner's mailing address.
So it'll be the mailing address where their tax bill goes.
Correct.
Okay. Are you all set?
Dawn, I have a few more questions, but I don't want to hog. If someone else wants to go, I'll just raise my hand again. So
No, go ahead. Let's just
okay.
fire them off.
Back to the slide in the beginning about the regulatory best practices, where it's recommending that people who live on the island, permanent residents, be permitted to do STRs. I just wonder if Granicus is aware that by and large, the vast majority of the people who own STRs on Nantucket do not live on the island.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we are aware of that. And part of the reason that we were brought on to implement this process is for that reason. We understand that a lot of the property owners who rent out their home or rent out their property on Nantucket as a short-term rental, the renters might not respect the integrity of the town. So that is what we're looking to help the government or help your local jurisdiction enforce.
Thank you. Kathy, do you have more?
One more, just is there going to be any involvement with of the public in the testing of the platform before it goes live?
Alex?
I don't believe so, but with this project still in progress, that's something that I will talk to my contact about, one of the members of the board here, who I'm working with, and we can look at that solution.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Dawn, if I may.
Yes, Brooke, please.
The group Alex is working on is not members of this board. It's members from the health department and town administration. So the use of the term board, Alex, I just want to make sure isn't confusing to people.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Roberto is your contact. Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's been working with me. And that's just a clarification issue. Sorry, Alex, I'm not part of the board. I'm the director of the health department.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any thoughts on pre-testing with some rental users?
I would much rather not. We need to get the board up and running. Get the meeting, the program up and running. I understand what Kathy is trying to get done. However, we do need to start moving forward with the project, and introducing undue delays will only make the project even worse.
Well, so it can, but as it gets implemented, when things can be changed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
as people start using it. Okay.
Yes, yes. And we have a contact information and all that's going to be on our website once it goes live that we're working with our public outreach. Once all that is out there, there is an email address you can contact. There's a phone number you can contact to give where your problems are going to be, and we can work on that. But we do need to get up and running.
Okay. Thank you.
And I will, in referencing the presentation in the last slide, we do estimate, that the rollout of the complete solution will be occurring around June of this year, but true enforcement is set to begin January of 2024. We've strategically picked those dates to allot for the change, we understand that this is going to be a change for your constituents as well as the health department and those members who will be authorizing the permits. So we want to make sure that if there are any necessary changes, we are acting upon those quickly before that true enforcement begins January of next year. And something that we as Granicus have been very intentional about is the community feedback, because we understand how important this is to your citizens of Nantucket. So we are providing feedback options for when your constituents are going through the application process. There will be an option for you to share your comments, share your experience going through. That will get translated back to us, and we can look at actioning upon some of those requests from the public as they begin to use that complete solution.
Thank you. We've got 4 more hands up. Caroline Baltzer.
You have unmuted me. This is Bob Vidoni.
Oh,
I'm hungry.
oh, I think we lost Caroline.
Sorry, I grabbed the wrong one.
Oh.
Do you want to?
Bob, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah,
And then
I'll be
bring
very
back
quick.
Caroline.
I'll be very quick. I just would like to underscore the points about TripAdvisor. They sent me a contract for our rental maybe 3 years ago. I rejected it. I didn't sign it. I didn't, want to be listed on TripAdvisor. It's still there. So that's really important that it's clear that these are duplicates in almost all cases. The second point, Madam Chair, that I'd like to address is I'm a little confused now after the comment regarding the Granicus has been hired to protect the integrity of the town. And with that comes a suggestion or an implication that only full-time residents should be able to rent. And I just would like to know if 50% or more of the STRs on Nantucket are basically banned because they're not full-time residents. How does that protect the integrity of the town with the loss of tax dollars? And it's really, that's quite concerning. So that's all I have.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that statement at all.
So,
Brooke?
Don, I want to restate what I said before, that despite what Alex has said or has in these slides, Granicus has a very narrow window of a health code regulation that they are tasked with enforcing. The work they do in other communities that was described in this presentation is not work they've been asked to do in Nantucket, because we have not determined whether we want to implement those policy changes here. And that is the work of the short-term rental work group that the community will have the opportunity to debate on the floor of town meeting on November 7th. And so I'm a little concerned Alex isn't really aware of that, but I just want to make it clear that this board is very aware of that strict limitation of the regulations that were passed by town meeting last year as health code regulations that will be enforced under this project with Granicus.
Thank you, Brooke. Oh, Roberto, go ahead.
To that point, Nan and Brooke, we we had to change project managers approximately a month and a half ago. So it's not Alex's fault that she didn't know that. That is not on Granicus. That is on me. This is information we have worked with the previous project manager, and that was already taken care of on the back end. Brooke is 100% correct that this is just for the rental registration. It doesn't matter what zoning or anything like that. All we're trying to do is get the registrations done. Brooke is 100% correct on that.
Thank you. I can't see, well, actually now I can see the mic, but apparently there's been someone standing at it for a while. Dave Iverson.
Thank you, Don. I guess through you, to either Roberto or Alex, I just kind of want to understand what the holdup is on the registration and where we're at there, because I think originally it was supposed to roll out the first of this year. And I'm just concerned about, we were hoping to collect that data and just when it will roll out, when it will be active.
Correct. So if you remember, the bylaw that was voted on in town meeting specifically said January 1st. But when we were looking at doing the regulation in the joint meeting of the Board of Health and the board and the select board back in August, we specifically said it'll be closer to about June. But unfortunately, the bylaw was voted in with that January 1st timeline. So that's what went into the regulation. We said at that meeting that that's a very tight schedule and that most likely that won't happen. June was always closer to the realistic thing. We have to build an entire software from the back end, and that's where the delay is. There's a lot of user testing that we've been doing right now from the back end in order so that we can get the permits process up and running on our end at the health department, so that once applications start coming in, we aren't the bottleneck.
Thank you.
Great. Just one more, Dawn, if I could, through you. So are you feeling comfortable about June? Do you think we'll be on track and that portal will be open by June, or are we still running a little behind?
I believe so. Absolutely. I do think that June is a good timeline. We are making more progress now with Alex than our previous project manager. So it is moving a lot faster. So I do think that June is a good timeline.
Great. Thank you very much.
I mean, the only thing I worry about, and I mean, it is what it is, but in June, pretty much all the rentals are already booked and up and running for the summer. So I don't know how fast people will be jumping to actually do their registration when it's really for 24. But it's just, I don't know how much data you're going to have right away. And I don't know if the short-term rental work group is going to be able to finish their work without any of this data. But let's not try and solve it out right now. Caroline Belzer.
I just want to apologize.
Thank you.
Bumping her before. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you very much. And through you to the chair, I'm try to reconfigure this question based on the comment of Brooke Moore clarifying things. So hopefully it won't be convoluted. I am still concerned that all of the concerns that were listed by Granicus as being the concerns of Nantucket, the assumptions that they made were all negative about what we in Nantucket are concerned about vis-a-vis short-term rentals. That negative bias, which is confusing, since we haven't sorted that out yet, it makes me concerned about the types of conversations that Granicus says they're having with the members of the board. I assume that's the health board and also the town. I wonder how that's flavoring those conversations. And I'm also wondering about how that might affect who's being selected to approve the applications to become a short-term rental in this new era. So I just feel that there are a lot of assumptions that they're negative, and I wonder how that's playing out. And I wonder if someone can address that. Thank you.
I can speak to that from the Granicus side, Roberto. So I do want to point out that the information that I shared regarding the impact, the negative impact of short-term rentals, that was not exclusive to Nantucket. Those are just some common policy objectives that Granicus has found, and some regulatory best practices regarding some of those objectives that we've seen frequently. We're not saying that this is exclusive to Nantucket, but I just wanted to let you know that when I took over this project, there was no assumption of negative impact or negative biases specific to the town of Nantucket. We were brought in by the health department. So my apologies again for addressing the entire board. We are working with the health department specifically, and we were brought on by the health department to really digitize that permitting process. So I thought, by presenting some of those top objectives for short-term rentals, just some common objectives that we see would have been beneficial to the community, and really who Granicus is, and more specifically, the overall high-level idea of why we're here. But I understand how that could have created more questions and concerns to the public. So Roberto, I'm not sure if you wanted to add on to that, but yes, these negative impacts are certainly not exclusive to Nantucket by any means.
Yes, and I just wanted to speak to the comment about there being bias among the staff, among the work that we're going to be doing. I hold my staff to some of the highest professional integrity that we can. There will be no bias in the application of the regulation when permits are applied for. It is a checklist. When people apply, if they meet the standard, they get their permit. There is no emotion when it comes to the application of that standard.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes. Go ahead.
I think we should just go back to what Brooke said originally. I think we're getting very emotional and making this very complicated. This is essentially just the formation and implementation of a database, period. Nothing more. It's not talking about data. We're not talking about specific rules and regulations. So I think we could move on.
Okay, there are 3 more hands raised. I'll just take these last 3, but if they could all keep it concise and really focused on the platform itself. Rebecca Duhame.
Thank you. So as some of you have seen in terms of my public comments in the Inquirer and Mirror, and my private conversations and communications with some of the folks representing this process, I am an SDR owner who is very much in favor of registration process happening, working well, working smoothly, and then helping to address the concerns that many residents of Nantucket apparently have raised with regard to managing problem SDRs, noise, traffic, et cetera. So I have from the beginning been eagerly awaiting this implementation. I wanted to mention, and I don't want to brag about my past, but I have the benefit of 30 years experience running large software and services projects. So I would like to suggest in that context, one of the reasons that some of us have been asking for a long time, either for the opportunity to participate in user testing, or at a minimum for some sort of early visibility to what the system is going to look like and the requirements to register. We've seen the regulation, but seeing the regulation is not the same thing as seeing how that's going to be implemented once someone goes into the system. I would suggest, if it's possible, even under some sort of non-disclosure, if you could accept volunteers to help in that process, we'd be more than willing to help. Understand that our motivation is to help this go smoothly. It is of grave concern, given that many SDR owners, having owned properties on Nantucket for decades, are us older folks who may not be facile with systems of this nature and may be flummoxed and perplexed by the specific requirements, not just of the system, but of the implementation of the regulations, some of which are a little bit onerous, to be honest. So please do consider some sort of advance information, at least to some of us, under non-disclosure, whatever restrictions, so that we don't talk about it publicly. Happy to do that. We want to make this come out smoothly, work well, serve the interest of Nantucket and all of residents, full and part-time, and the community at large. We'd like to help with that. So please allow us to do that. Please consider that. Also, in the context of the timing of the rollout, although, again, it's appreciated that this isn't going to be enforced until January. That's great. However, in June, many of us will already be engaging in leases for the following year. And to the extent that there are any SDR owners who aren't paying careful attention to what's in the regulations and understanding exactly how that's being implemented, you could have some serious hiccups and pushback if people are surprised by things that affect contracts they're already executing for the summer of 2024. So thank you for considering these points.
Yes. Thank you. Roberto, I think that's maybe helpful feedback for you. Diane Brickley.
Hi, thanks for calling on me. I know it's been addressed and I appreciate Roberto's comments and Brooke's articulation on it, but I have to say, on behalf of others who are non-residents, the actual quote was, "Non-residents don't respect the integrity of the town." And that was really offensive to hear. And I know that may not matter for the other group that's working on this topic, but it's a sensitive topic. And to have that just casually expressed in this setting was disappointing.
Thank you. Point taken. Henry Sanford. Henry.
Hi, thanks everyone. I just had a question as a STR broker. So we have our own database. This is more about like doing things on behalf of a third party. We're often asked by owners to kind of just like take care of all the compliance. You know, I mean, they'll sign on the dotted line and they'll, you know, attest the affidavit, but like, is there going to be a way to, like, for example, we pay taxes, the STR tax on behalf of the owners, and on the Mass DOR portal, there's even a checkbox like, are you paying this on behalf of somebody or are you the person? Is there going to be a way for third parties to help? I mean, I can just see a lot of people saying, how do I register? Well, and then like a good operator will say, well, I'll help you do it. So is there going to be a way for third parties to assist? If like, what if an owner just says, please do this for me? Do I say, no, you have to do it yourself? Or is there a way for the way the DOR allows a third party to pay taxes?
Yeah, I think we understand the question.
Yeah, thank you. That's more of a technical question about the platform. And then I just want to add on to Rebecca's point that because third party operators, if so, can go there, I feel like we're going to be kind of the first ones to hit the beach, so to speak, when the portal comes out. I feel like I can just see my phone and other people's phones, ringing. How do I do this? How do I do this? So like, if you could maybe show some of the, especially probably the large brokerage offices that do, have like 1,000 rentals in their databases, to show them the portal, maybe, the beta, if you will, could probably be really, really helpful for compliance, because they're going to be really the people who are going to probably be asked most of the questions, like just as a default response from the owners. That's who they go to. So anyways, thank you.
Good suggestion.
The answer to that is yes. I actually turned in the logic model just this last week for that. And there's a specific question that says, I am the property manager, helper, things like that. There is an option for another person to do it on behalf.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think that if everybody's all set, I think we'll move on to consent items. Thank you, Alex, for being here.
Okay, thank you.
Roberto.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Gift acceptances. Brooke, do you want to read that for me?
I was gonna offer to do that. Okay, bear with me one second. Move to recommend the acceptance of the following gifts to town agencies: to the Department of Public Works, a gift of 4 large planters from Remain Nantucket valued at $5,275 that are located outside 10 Washington Street. The motion is to accept all gifts for their designated purposes with thanks to the donors.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Thanks very much. Next up is citizen departmental requests. Robert B. Auer, amendment to our noise bylaw. David Gray is here for this.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. We came back to you to seek just a change in the noise waiver that we had received a couple of weeks ago due to some unexpected utilities that were not on any plans or marked within the bike path, so we have to move out into the roadway. We did start this process, and we just wanted to get the permit in order with the proper dates on it.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. Next up, we have thanks, David. We have a licensing review request for a pedicab license hearing for NanTukTuk. I think the main question here is to have the board discuss pedicabs.
Yeah.
Libby or Amy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We received in licensing a request, as you mentioned, from NanTukTuk regarding a pedicab service. And upon further research, we have regulations for pedicabs. I was not aware of it at the time. I had, kind of gone along the taxi cab situation, which we have a waiting list for about 50 people. So looking in the information that Erica shared as well in the packet from the history of this in 2011, these regulations were adopted similar to like BYOBs and things like that in the state, where I think something, if it doesn't have regulations or otherwise in the town to restrict it or regulate it, it's allowed. And so I think at the time there were requests and the regulations were adopted to set some parameters around it. My understanding that that did not happen as far as operation, but they were set up in 2011. So when we received this request, we put it forward as far as what the next steps were. Again, I'm just going to read real quickly from Chapter 316, which talks about no person shall engage in the business of transporting persons for hire in a vehicle without first having obtained a license from the Nantucket Select Board. In it, it mentions that the Select Board shall set the number of pedicab owner licenses available in any calendar year at will. So it doesn't require you to do so. What the request here is for the Select Board to determine whether or not they wish to move forward with a public discussion and a public hearing to determine number of licenses to be issued for this year or in the future as well. We have the applicant, Michael Gormley from NanTukTuk, here to answer any questions. And I advised him as well that we didn't want to go down too far into a rabbit hole as far as his individual application, but more of the regulations and any questions the board has as regarding, what decision you need to make here. So I'll leave it at that for right now and see what questions you may have.
Board members? I can't see any of you.
Is there a staff recommendation? Is a board
Well,
recommendation?
I'll talk a little bit about this, and it may not be a good week for me to answer these kind of questions, but when it first came to me, my thought was this should go to, if we had a transportation planner, which we now have Mike back. Welcome back, Mike, and possibly traffic safety or some committee of that sort that could address the concerns or what could possibly come up with adding this new type of service that, I'll license whatever it is you require us to license. Obviously, we have set up regulations, and I know the application itself went further beyond that because back then there wasn't pedal assist, and they want pedal assist. We're still dealing with electric bikes in general. Do they go on the bike path? Do they go off? So I'll tell you my opinion is that something like this, I'd like to see go through some sort of review that way, that we're at a point that I feel like Nantucket needs to learn to live with what it has and manage what it has before we continue to add on. I think, Matt, we've discussed this before where sometimes we say, okay, yeah, let's do it, then figure it out after. And it's April 5th and we're exhausted. It has been one heck of a year coming out of this pandemic. With a lot of changes. So this isn't about the individual application or person applying. It is just about stacking on things without settling a lot of things that have come up first. So that would be my general recommendation. But whether or not you wish to move forward with a public hearing or discuss it further, I would, and again, the regulations set forth some restrictions in a service area. If we did move forward, I certainly would, as we do oftentimes, do it slowly and not expand it as the application requests different things that aren't in those. So I would caution to proceed slowly would be my recommendation.
There's a service area that was approved in 2011. And just for the public, I think we could probably put it on the screen. It runs from Main Street down to the jetties, up to the cliff, North Liberty Street, New Lane. So it's a fairly small area. So
correct.
And
I believe, the application, and I don't have it directly in front of me. And again, Michael's here to talk about it, did talk about tours and different things that might go beyond it. And I don't even want to get into that right now. Obviously things have changed in that area since 2011, but again, we're still dealing with electric bikes in general and trying to catch up with all these things that have come up. The other part of this too is, part of me is thinking, okay, how does this get in the way of taxi cabs and things of that sort? We have obviously a long waiting list. We've chosen not to expand the number of licenses in that area. In this case too, as far as the regulations, and I know in New York, I've dealt with this in a pedicab, is that there's no set fee. They don't have the fee set up. It's more of it becomes a negotiation in the back of the pedicab, as I've experienced. It's not something set. It's like a tip sort of situation. So it's different in that way too, which can get a little weird there as well. So I felt like it bumped up against some other things that maybe we need to address first. And it's similar to some things that came up in the pandemic. Some of the outdoor dining was great. Would we like to do that again sometime in the streets? Maybe, but we need to do other things first to allow for more pedestrian ways. Provincetown, I talked to a lot. They have some of these, but they also closed down it's part of their main street during the summer, and it's obviously a different vibe. So there's different things. Just because it works somewhere else doesn't necessarily translate to what we have now. So any sort of addition, I feel like we need to kind of really see how it fits in with what we have before we jump into it. But that would just be my personal feeling on that.
I have a question, Dawn. Are you going to take public comment tonight on this?
I think we could take maybe a couple of brief comments if anyone's come for this. And I know that Michael wanted to say something, who's the actual applicant, but I don't want to get too far into it being a public hearing. I think that a lot of this is to have the board understand it and make comments. But I think it might be wise to hear from Michael Gormley, if that's all right.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for including me on tonight's meeting. So I do have a proposal prepared, but I guess that isn't necessarily appropriate for the intentions of tonight's meeting.
I
So I
think
guess
we're looking for a little bit more of maybe you're not fully presenting a case for your particular business, but for the viability of pedicab service on Nantucket in general, with sort of the nature of our layout compared to other cities that have this, which I do like pedicabs very much, but I've only used them in Boston.
Okay, so I've operated a pedicab myself in Charleston as a college job, and that was a somewhat similar venue due to the narrow roads, cobblestone roads, very well preserved historic district, and that was a very well appreciated business within the community and a successful business at that as well. So just a few things I want to address that Ms. Baxter brought up. So in 2011, it was initially pedicab regulations were brought forth because a man, PJ Antoniuk, brought the idea of pedicabs up, and he was approved with the current regulations in a 3-2 vote, and that was for 2 licenses. So I just want to clarify that and he opted out of accepting those licenses because it wasn't economically viable. I'm a little more flexible with that and would be happy to take, and as Ms. Baxter suggested, a more so pilot program. And I think it's a good idea to kind of do an experiment. I'm very optimistic that this would be successful on Island, and I think it would be great to get a couple pedicabs out to then prove to the community that it would end up being a net positive. So the main points that people bring up are congestion. So the priority for, if not to personalize it too much, but for NanTukTuk would be to have a net positive on congestion. So we'd be incentivizing people away from driving into town. So this would be A, freeing up parking spaces, and B, eliminating those cars from circling around town in search of parking spaces. Furthermore, the width of the pedicab is about half that of the average car. So when we're pulled over to drop off or pick up customers, it's really easy for other cars to navigate around us. It will not hold up traffic. And this is entirely safe, as we'll have headlights, taillights, blinkers will be entirely illuminated. And congestion is really, if we have a line of cars behind us honking their horns, then that entirely takes away from the leisurely, enjoyable experience that the customers would be paying for. So what would be bad for Nantucket would be bad for business. So that would be our priority right behind safety. So to the point of stepping on the taxi cab toes, that's another priority of ours. We will not be parking in taxi cab stands. And we are also hoping to appeal to a different market. So as we are only going to be operating within the historic district for this first season, I also want to clarify, I have no intention of requesting any change of the set map. I think that'll be fine for the pilot season to experiment with that. But it would be within that zone, which I don't think is where the taxi cabs operate as much. It would be essentially the long walk that we would be replacing. Furthermore, I agree, I don't like the tipping payment structure. I think that's less effective. So especially if we were rented out by a venue or something along those lines, which would be our primary goal with the business, is to work directly with hotels, restaurants, and venues to provide a unique, eco-friendly, fun transportation option, just to enhance the guest experience. But it'd be difficult to create those full night contracts just off of, a suggested tip. It would be great if we could just have a more clear pricing structure. So I agree with Ms. Baxter there. And then for pedal assist, that is not necessary. That's primarily or predominantly a suggestion, just because on the cobblestones, it's helpful to have really wide tires on the bikes. The downside of that is it makes the bikes go slower and it's incredibly strenuous to operate them. So the pedal assist would just compensate for that problem. And my understanding with the pedal assist controversy on Island is that is predominantly for sidewalks, which will just be on the roads. So where the pedal assist is in question would not apply to the pedicabs. Mind you, if pedal assist is not an option, I'm happy to do away with the wide tires and just do thin tires, and we will navigate that way. And so I guess that answers all the questions that were brought up by Ms. Baxter, with an attempt to not apply it too much to NanTukTuk or my license. If anyone has any other general questions toward pedicabs, I've done a tremendous amount of research on the topic, have a lot of experience myself, so I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Thank you. Do the board members have questions?
Right. Go ahead. I insist.
It's less a question than a comment. It feels like there's pieces of the regulations that likely would need to be amended around the pedal assist and the pricing structure around. I mean, I can almost imagine at some point doing a pilot where this were not a hail ride service, but a scheduled transportation from hotels, et cetera. But it just feels like we're not ready for this season is my inclination. Just because there's too many unknowns and you've already articulated some things that you'd like to see changed in the regulations to make it work better for the business. That's kind of where I'm at right now is not quite ready for prime time, but some more feedback from transportation, police, fire, et cetera, around the impact. And I realize he's talking about 2 pedicabs, so we're not talking about being inundated with them. But once we, I was kind of thinking, why not? And then I just feel like there's too many unknowns. And to your point, Amy, we still haven't addressed the issues around e-bikes and how we're going to regulate those. And those are already proliferating, and we need to spend time on that first in terms of town administration time.
Thank you, Brooke. Did Malcolm want to say something? I'll come back to you, Michael.
Bobby, then I'll talk.
Oh, is Bobby at the mic? I can't see the mic, so.
Thank you, Bob DaCosta. I was on the board when this came up the last time. Matt, I think Matt was there with me. We were the only 2 that were you there then?
I don't think I was.
So maybe no one
was right
that's on
before I
this
got
board
on.
now. We put these regulations into place basically because of what Amy said, that we couldn't regulate this or say no without regulations. At the time, the majority of the board the majority of the board voted to give 2 licenses, but I was one of the dissenting votes just because I'd never seen one, and I was concerned about the unique instances that we have here. I just got back from Charleston. I was there a month ago, and I saw the pedicabs there, and I can tell you from what I saw there, it will not work here. It'll be a nightmare. Charleston is not like Nantucket, historic Charleston, in the effect that they don't have 18 wheelers going through town 5-6 times a day off of boats going and coming. These things they're not the size of a car, but they're pretty big. They're 4 foot wide. They're probably 6 to 7 feet long. I don't know where they're going to park. If they park, they're going to take up parking spaces that are at a premium in town as it is. And I can just see one of these things cutting through from Remain down over to the Steamship Wharf when there's 5 trucks trying to get to the freight boat in the middle of the day. I mean, we can't be the same as everywhere. We're unique in the aspect that downtown in July and August we cram 10 pounds of what into a 4-pound bag, and trying to put these things in there on top of it. You got bikes, you got mopeds, you got cars, you got trucks, you got pedestrians. I just don't see how these would, to have 2 as a novelty.
And the area that they go, from where they go in this historic district, you can walk. So do you really need them? It's more of a gimmick than anything else. And I would urge the board to definitely not do anything this summer. And if you want to, think about it more over the course of the winter months, but it's at this late hour to try to put something in place, I think is a mistake.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, I mean, that's interesting because I have a couple notes from people who've been to Charleston to tell me how wonderful they are in Charleston. So there's always a difference of opinion. It's like, Brooke, I mean, it's intriguing to me. And we're talking about 2 cabs in an area that's not that, except when they get towards Main Street and the ships, that area is pretty well untraveled. So if there's a way forward, I would like to explore it. We're not talking about 20 pedicabs. We're talking about 2 cabs in an area that is probably maybe underserved by cabs, but not many cabs. If there's a way to go forward, I'd like to explore it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to Michael, and then I'd like to make a couple of comments.
So just to the point of Charleston, I guess it was unfortunate that the public comment was from the minority of the board in 2011 that was opposed to pedicabs, because everyone who I know, that there is generally a negative knee-jerk reaction. I've spoken with lots of residents, and then the more that I am able to explain it, everyone is very excited by the idea at the end. I would like to pretty bluntly disagree with how they are effective, or how they are, I forget your adjective, but disastrous, I think it was, for Charleston. I've spoken with select board members in Charleston. I've lived there for many years. I've friends who have lived there for a lifetime, and it is indisputably very well received there. I do agree to your point, though, that Nantucket is unique, and I do not mean to say that necessarily if it works in Charleston, it will work in Nantucket. My only point was the small comparison of the narrow cobblestone roads. I also think that was a bit presumptive that we would be going across trying to cut off 5 different trucks. Like I said earlier, that would be an awful experience for the customers if we were to put them in that position. So we have zero incentive to have any contribution to congestion. To the point of parking, I will not take up any parking spaces. Our goal is to, if anything, free up parking spaces. I've gotten permission from a few different private businesses as well as private residences within that historic district that said I would be allowed to park my bikes on their property to ensure that this is not at all a public burden.
Thank you.
And that is all I have.
Thank you. I kind of have mixed feelings. I love that these are bikes and that they're more green and going towards a lot of our transportation goals of getting away from single occupancy vehicles. I do, have some concerns with adding more vehicles on the roads. But I do think a pilot would be the way to go. I do think it needs to be reviewed by traffic safety and further review from public safety. So I concur with Amy that it needs to go through the process and be taken in a slow manner. I think maybe it's possible to get something in place this season, but it'll be a bit of a hurdle. I'm not sure where it falls in the queue with everything else. And so, yeah, I like the idea in many ways. I think that there are some ways that we could craft it to deal with the potential concerns, but I think it needs some more work. And it needs to go through the people that know more than I do about traffic planning.
Madam Chair, it's
Yes.
Erica. I just wanted to let you know regarding traffic safety, their next meeting is not until May 18th.
Okay. I mean, it could certainly be worked on by our transportation planner, I think. Amy, did you have your hand up?
I did. it can certainly go to a public hearing if you want to hear more. There's a couple things. You definitely, it would have to be a pilot program that was very specific to an operator. To say it would only be 2. Let me tell you how that goes when we set precedents up and when we let anything out of the bag, and what my past 2 months have been like, with great ideas coming through. So it's just a concern about, again, timing and understanding. I don't think Mr. DaCosta was saying that Charleston's a disaster. He felt that transferring things that work well other places here don't always work. And again, that's something we get all the time. They love it in Charleston. They love it in Nashville. It doesn't always translate. So I understand what he was saying in that sense. So it's just wanting careful thought and planning to go into adding, because it is, the objective is always, or the answer is always, well, it's only 2. It's only 2. We don't have to worry about enforcement, or you don't have to worry about, adding on to it, but it's just stack. So I just want to make sure that it's well considered by those who understand traffic and that sort of impact.
And I'd want sort of a balancing of how many licenses make it a viable business. So that it makes some logical sense. Michael, did you have one more comment?
Yes, last comment. So I guess just initially piggybacking on how there seems to, there is not so much, I mean, I agree that we should go over with traffic safety and so on and so forth, but the groundwork is already set. A lot of the initial work is fully in order. There's about 36 regulations, and I am only suggesting changes on 2 of those, but mind you, I would still be happy to operate without changing those 2. So I don't think there's a ton of editing or further work to be done on the pedicabs, aside from, of course, checking up with the police department and these other departments to make sure it's up to code. But I think that's more so as approval or small edits rather than really crafting or creating any significant articles. And then additionally, I just want to bring up the point on, I know you're hesitant to bringing more vehicles on island. The benefit of pedicabs is they will hopefully incentivize less people from driving into town. So if anything, it will be less vehicles, more parking spaces, and less people circling around town. And then my last point was that this will have to be a collaborative experience. I don't think that once 2 is approved, that then implies next year 10 are in. I think if 2 were approved for this season, we would of course then meet following the season and discuss how it went. And at that point, it would be up to the board to decide if they wanted to go further with that or cut it off. And to your previous question, 4 pedicabs would be economically viable.
Don? It's
Thank
Matt.
you, Matt. Yes, I'd love
I
your
think
thoughts.
the goal tonight is whether we want to have a public hearing in the future and schedule one, and I'm not sure. I don't want to have a schedule one until we've heard from traffic safety, BPAC, et cetera. I would like to get their input. Otherwise, we'd just be spitballing again at another meeting, sort of trying to figure out what we know or what we don't know or what we should have known. And so I think that, and the other part, what Bobby's talking about, when you look at the map, I think the part the concerning part for me would be like Broad Street, South Water Street, Easy Street, the truck route. And if we are doing the reverse truck route, which in middle of summer, we probably won't be, that becomes an issue. But I think a lot of the other areas, it might work. But when you start getting into the busy areas where you're going to want to go to pick up people at the boat, et cetera, like if you're going down to the jetties and up to around the cliff, it's probably okay all through there, so anyway, I think that's the kind of detail that I would like to have, someone that we can't really do well on a Wednesday night. So.
Dawn, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Brooke.
We have 52 open positions in town government right now. I'm not really sure we need to add another thing to everybody's plate at this point. I don't think this is a high priority. I'm looking at Amy's face.
No,
And I'm noting that we've been without a transportation planner for a number of months. He's just come back on board. We have major projects in the pipeline. This just does not feel like something we need to push forward in April, right ahead of the season.
Okay.
Dawn, I just have one more comment. Yeah.
Yes, Malcolm.
This may not be the time, but let us not study this to death like we do many things in this organization and town. Let's just get it done as quickly as possible.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to add one more thing. Mr. Gormley said out of the 36 points in the regulations, only 2 really needed to be discussed. I just want to remind everyone that a regulation isn't an easy change like a policy. It requires 4 weeks of advertising, a public hearing. So it's involved, even if it's for seemingly 2 small things. So just a reminder about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do this right if this is something that we're really going to do, and have it go through the proper people. I know that Mike's just getting back. If we could add this to his list to start review on and get it on traffic safety's next agenda, I would support that. And we'll go from there after we hear back from them. And you know, maybe the pilot includes 4, but it might be next summer. It is late and there is a lot going on and there are a lot of open positions. Brooke's very correct on that. And we have town meeting in a couple of weeks. So, but traffic safety is meeting after that, and then things slowed down for the board slightly, although we're getting into season. But the timeline just might be a little bit tight. But I support getting the process moving to really review this and see what regulations do need to be changed. And if we can implement sort of the right parameters to make it work. Is that fair? Numbers?
If I may, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I was certainly waiting for Mike to come back. And, you know, I'm thinking here, there's other things to consider. I know a lot of the hotels and inns downtown, there's several that are starting with the electric golf carts to help transport people around, different things happening. So there's a lot of different little things in the mix right now that I want to make sure those that are aware of those things are doing it correct. Because yeah, I have, you know, as much as he says he won't do those cut throughs, we all know summer. And I didn't sleep well when we had the sidewalk dining with the trucks coming around the corner. So we just want to make sure that that's done properly for public safety, very much so.
Yeah, and if I might, Dawn.
Yes.
Golf carts, it's first I've heard of that. So it feels like we need to do some more comprehensive planning around alternative modes of transportation rather than addressing them one at a time.
Correct.
Yes, but I would think that we would all support things that are smaller and more eco-friendly, but we have to put all the pieces together correctly. And I know that Amy had a huge amount on her plate coming out of COVID and restructuring after all of the outdoor dining was implemented, and it's just a bit of a process. And I hate to put someone off who's got an exciting idea and has experience in it. And we'll try to move it forward as quickly as we can with everything else going on. Does that make sense, Michael?
Yes, it does. And I want to just apologize for, as this is coming up in April now, I just want to quickly clarify that I did initially bring this up in October, and I understand these processes take a long time. And as you said, there's lots of other very important things on the docket. So in no way am I complaining about that. I just want to quickly bring up that I understand April 5th, but I agree with you that I think it's certainly worth pursuing to see if we can maybe get the pilot season underway.
Yes, absolutely. And I assumed that you had brought this forward a bit ago, but it just tends to take a little bit longer, especially with our vacancies. But let's try and see if we can do it correctly. Let's add it to traffic safety's agenda if we can for May 18th. and see what Mike Burns has to say about it.
Do you want a motion, Dawn, to
Um,
bring it to public safety, traffic safety, and BPAC if they're
I
meeting?
think that would be good.
Yeah, and then leave it up to the chair and the co-chair to set a public hearing if and when we receive that information.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
No.
I'm an aye. So we'll continue this.
Thank you.
Brooke, why no? Just for the,
What?
do you think? How would you like to proceed with it?
I just think we're rushing something that is a much lower priority than many other things that we have on the town's plate right now. I don't want to add something else to the pile.
Yeah.
Mike can review it by May 18th, along with multiple bike paths, road improvement projects, and other things that the community's been funded for years and haven't been able to be followed through on, grants to manage, et cetera. That's where I'm coming from. It's just one more thing on the pile.
And I agree with you. And that's specifically why I didn't put a date on it.
Yeah.
If and when they can get to it is the motion I made. And
Yeah.
I appreciate I appreciate your vote on it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a point that well taken that we should consider more often than we do. Thank you.
And I just want Mr. Gormley to realize that, this means, I don't know, this leaves his planning for this summer very much in limbo.
Yeah.
As well. So.
No, I think the reality is that we're looking at next season, and starting it now is what's necessary to make that happen correctly. At this point. So I'm going to move on to the next agenda item. Number 3, Nantucket Property Owner LLC request for waiver of sewer connection permits. It's numbers 3 and number 4. I know Dave Arminetti is here.
Dawn, we're gonna, I think, have Tucker take the lead on this.
Oh, okay. I can't see who's in the room.
You want the applicant to say or go after Tucker?
Why doesn't Tucker go first?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. I think this is a fairly straightforward item. NPO LLC, the board will recall, is the successor to a certain number of lots within Sandpiper 2 of the Richmond development along Old South Road. And in their purchasing these lots from Richmond, they also assumed responsibility for a certain number of affordably restricted lots at AMI levels of 80% and also 175%. They are here tonight seeking under the sewer fee waiver policy waivers associated with the 80% lot, 80% lots, which would under the policy apply to both the connection fee and the capacity fee. They are also requesting the waiver under the policy for 175% AMI restricted unit, which would apply to the connection fee. So this is a rather straightforward request. The board routinely would grant a waiver for these units, and we are recommending that the board grant waivers in accordance with the policy. The only item that has been a bit of an open issue is the documentation around the approval of DHCD for the swapping of some of the lots. Originally, lots they acquired had the affordable restriction or were intended to have the affordable restriction. And due to various reasons, good reasons, the applicant has sought through the planning board process to reassign certain lots within this portion of what they purchased. And the final step here is just documentation around, in particular, DHCD's agreement that the swapped lots are suitable or acceptable to DHCD. So we would recommend approving the sewer waiver requests as noted in the AIS with the condition of documentation from DHCD that shows these lots are acceptable to them. Thank you.
I can respond to that part of it.
You know, I think, do you need to respond?
Yes, because that condition is unnecessary. We have already been through this with the HCD. We've talked to Rico. The owners have talked to Rico. One of the owners is online up here, as well as the project manager. And she doesn't want to hear from us. She said they didn't have to, she wasn't going to issue anything. We've talked to her verbally. And she said that so long as we had all the required units, which we do, and so long as the planning board was fine with it. And I've spoken to Megan today, and we have a letter from Megan right here saying that there was no issue. She's spoken to them and there's no issues. They don't want to hear from us every time we move a lot. She said it's fine. I don't know if you're in possession of what Megan sent this afternoon. They just all got back from it. I sent it to you. I'm going to just read it. It's like 3 lines. Yes, the planning board administratively allowed for swapping of units within the subdivision. Our section is 35 lots, as long as the overall remained the same. Planning staff coordinated with both the Municipal Housing Office, DHCD, to confirm this would be allowable. It's my understanding that 24 Honeysuckle, which we've removed from the list, is becoming a pool clubhouse and will no longer be affordable unit, so should be removed from the list, which it was. We have the other 7 lots, which they are aware of, and there's only been a few that have swapped. One was because of parking, and I sent the special permit in to Erica yesterday. So there's no need to go back to the state. They're not going to issue anything in writing. She is fine with it, and she's been involved with this project since the beginning. And I'd like to eliminate that from the discussion because it's been ongoing. When we did the original lots that you gave us the permission for, which is lot 74 and 77, we went through this exercise of talking to DHCD, and they said, we're fine. You don't need to come back to us every time you move it from lot A to lot B. So they are in full support of this from several months ago, and I don't believe their position has changed. And that was Megan's email.
Thank you, Linda. I don't know, Tucker, I'm not sure if you had that information, but does that satisfy that concern?
I have the note that Linda referenced that Megan sent this afternoon around 4:15. I was at a teachers union meeting, so I only just saw it getting to the select board meeting tonight. I guess in my own opinion, I would like to just confirm it with Rieko. I mean, this is a relatively minor thing. As I said, otherwise fully recommending that these waivers be granted.
Okay.
Don, I have a question.
Yeah.
The sewer fee is on the math. In the case
Yes.
where less than all the units in the project are income restricted, the select board may waive up to 100% for the 80% units.
Yeah.
75% for the 81 to 100 and 50% for the 101 to 150. So have you, is that the number we have? Is that how you've derived this number?
Yeah, well, and so the board, you'll recall, updated the sewer fee
Right.
waiver policy. I think it was back in November, and that does include the 175 level, basically treated in the same manner that covenant homes were previously sought. So the math has all been reviewed with the sewer department, and they agree with the math that is included in the AIS.
Yeah, and there was an issue that came up with the 3 that I did for Housing Authority.
No, I understand that. Yeah. I'm just making sure because it wasn't.
Yeah,
there
it's
in
not in the
packet,
thing.
But yeah.
Linda, anything else?
No, it's just the 175s were okayed several months ago for the 3 we did for Housing Nantucket and a couple of our other ones.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board on these?
I'd like to move approval, subject to Tucker confirming with DHCD that the lot swaps were acceptable.
Okay, and a verbal confirmation, I'm assuming, is okay.
Yeah, she won't issue anything in writing.
Is that on, can we do number 3 and 4 together? In one motion?
Your motion is going to have two different, because there's no conditions on the other one, right?
They're two different applicants.
Yeah.
And it's
So-
two different applicants.
Yeah, two different
Okay.
applicants. So I'm going to handle the
I
first one
gotcha.
subject to that.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
I'm seconding it.
all those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
I,
Malcolm McNabb,
I just like to comment, I don't like getting information just before the meeting, so I think we need confirmation.
okay. That's in the motion. Brooke Moore.
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. And then we'll, thank you. We'll move on to the next waiver request that's for the Richmond company.
Yeah, and this is very
Similar,
much,
like you said, not the same condition.
yeah, very much in the same vein as the prior request. The requests are all consistent with the sewer fee waiver policy and the MOAs that the board has with Richmond Company. In this case, no lots are different than what were originally submitted. So we are asking the board to approve the sewer fee waivers. And again, the numbers contained in the AIS have been reviewed and concurred with by the sewer department.
I'm ready to make a motion to approve as outlined in the AIS.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
I,
Malcolm McNabb,
aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you very much on that. Thanks, Tucker. Select board reports and comments. We have an update on the proposed independent review of the Historic District Commission operations. There's an outline, and this was tabled from both February 15th and March 15th. Who am I going to on this?
Madam Chair, do you want me to give you a quick overview?
Yes, please.
So just a bit of background on this. Last summer, the issue arose as to whether or not HDC advisory committees were properly established. It was determined that they were not. They stopped meeting except for the sign advisory committee, which was reestablished subsequently through appointment by the select board. Thereafter, issues arose about HDC staffing with a citizen warrant article filed for the 2023 annual town meeting. At a board meeting in November 16th, it was recommended that consideration be given to an independent review of the HDC's processes, meetings, structure, staff requirements, application types, and associated issues. A draft scope of services for such a review was developed, sent around, reviewed, and most recently reviewed by the HDC, which has some comments on it in your packet. And I think the point of your agenda item tonight is to either proceed with the review or have some discussion about the review, or ask any questions of staff or whoever.
I'm happy to say I support the review and I'd like to see it move forward.
Sorry, that was my fault. I ran out of the room for a second.
Madam Chair, just I probably forgot to mention, the HDC chair and vice chair are here, and they may want to speak on this. I think someone coming.
Okay, is that Ray?
It is. Is this
Okay.
on?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Hi, everybody. It's Ray Pohl, for the record, chairman of the HDC. I do have Stephen Welch in the audience here, who's done a tremendous amount of work putting together this document that you have in front of you. And I also have a number of members from the staff who may want to speak. So we can either speak now or you can call on us, whatever you prefer. Stephen's at the other mic.
I would just have all of you register your comments, and we'll go from there.
Whoa.
I mean, this review is of your board and department.
Yeah, well, okay. So Dawn, a tremendous amount of work has been, a tremendous amount of time has been spent by Stephen and his group, and then the group at large, the HCC at large, reviewing how the independent review should take place. We certainly would like to, have our seat at the table, so to speak, in terms of, the results, and keep the HDC independent. That's our desire. Of course, understanding that we know that it's all up to you folks to vote this through. So we hope that the language that we've come up with is satisfactory and that is agreeable to you. With that, Stephen, do you have anything further you'd like to say, or do you want to wait for questions?
Yeah, if I may, good evening, members of the board. Hello, Madam Chair. So basically I'd like to keep it short and sweet, and I'm hoping that you guys will be able to do the same. You all initiated, as a result of what's been discussed, some leadership and discussed an independent review of the HDC. The HDC took that document, we applied our areas of concern, and we were able to unanimously adopt that. I think as a result of that independent review, as it's been adopted, there are some, the HDC isn't broke, but it needs a little fixing, and it'll give us a leg up on that process. And we're hopeful that you've reviewed it, that despite the fact that you may not agree with every cross T and dotted I, that you understand and respect the HDC is an independent authority under a special act. We've been fighting off comments from others that the select board and admin would like to usurp the HDC. We frankly don't believe that's true. This is an opportunity to support that perception. And we would ask that you vote to approve the independent review as adopted by the HDC. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just say that what we've been trying to do here is help you go through your process in a better way to better serve the community in both protecting our historic resources and the service of the public. Is that Holly at the mic?
Yes, Madam Chair. Holly Backus for the
Go ahead.
record. Thank you. I wanted to emphasize that the HDC has bought in with actually that this document that's before you for this independent review. And I think that's very, very important. I also want to point out, which is also in your packet, that I have reached out to the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, which I know I've mentioned that before. They are the nation's leader. This is what they do. They help preservation commissions across the country. They've been doing this for, I think this is their 40th year. And they have taken that scope that the HDC has owned, if you will, and basically spit it out and said, this is something that we would be wanting to assist with. And I will tell you, per their basically project manager, as well as their executive director, they have submitted this draft that they've given to us to their training committee and their board chair. And they are all in favor, and they thought that it would be a great addition to their overall teachings that they do. So Nantucket would also be, I guess, a pilot for them on this. But this is what they do. They teach and guide commissions across the country, and I would just hope that you would support this. So thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page here. What you're being asked to adopt in terms of the scope is found on your packet on page 143, and it's got that blue highlighting on it, and I can put it on the screen if you need me to.
Maybe put it up on the screen for a minute for the audience. Do the board members have any thoughts, comments? I think that we were looking to approve this if possible.
Madam Chair, I have some questions first.
Of course.
Just Holly, and first of all, the HDC itself wants this to happen. And you support all the documents that are here. What Holly said, you said that this would be a pilot project for the Preservation Alliance, because aren't they more of a preservation group than a management group?
The National Alliance of Preservation Commissions do exactly this. They do a camp program. It's called Commission and mentoring program. Actually, as a matter of fact, during COVID in 2020, we had a virtual camp for both our HDC commissioners as well as the historical commissioners and any preservation folks in the community. And we had a camp program via Zoom because of COVID. And this is something that they've been doing for quite a while. And because of COVID, they've been able to make it so it's more virtual. What I meant was that they have taken the scope that the HDC has presented to you all tonight and basically made it so they could come to Nantucket and actually do this work. They would do interviews with staff, with the commissioners, the public. Again, it's all in your packet. And they've given us a scope of services basically based on what the HDC has provided to you all and given a cost of what that would be for the town. So that was my mention, that they have really gone above and beyond to say, yes, we would be helping Nantucket with this venture and possibly using it as a program for other communities. That's what they do. They can learn to do something for some other location. They would like to adapt it to others. There's a lot of organizations that do that.
So I have a couple more because the HDC is really I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, yes, go ahead with more questions.
It's kind of the core of the whole island. It makes a lot of the island what it is. And in some places it was talking about looking again at the special act. Do we need to do that? That makes me shudder when I hear someone looking at the special act.
Yeah. Madam Chair, through you, as I think I've been before you all in saying that, I've been advised by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. I've been advised by many people in the preservation world that with our special act, we don't want to just open it up. I think I've been quoted as willy-nilly. But these folks are preservation minded, whether they're in the law aspect of preservation, whether they're in actual commissioners themselves. They know that each jurisdiction is different. So for instance, when we had our camp training in November of 2020, they looked at our special act. They looked at our Massachusetts enabling legislation. They looked at our open meeting law requirement. They looked at all of that. So it's tailored to the individual locations. And yes, looking at our special act is important. But I do agree with you that we don't want to just, do that. It's important to look at are those things that we want to do. And I do feel that this scope that they have provided to the town takes into everything that the town as well as the HDC have been wanting to do.
I'm sorry, I just have a few more because this is one of my, I love the historic nature of this island. I just want to make sure the HDC is functioning as it should. I mean, if you look at some of the things in the scope here, they're almost obvious questions. Are the meetings efficient? Probably not. Is the process efficient? Probably not. There's a question here about advisory committees. Are there added value? Well, I think if we asked you, you'd say they're probably not. If we asked the HDC, they'd probably yes. So, I mean, are we just going to get information we already know? I'm just concerned about that. And this whole question about never really answered. We had two legal opinions about whether, in fact, the HDC could appoint these committees, and that was never really resolved. Will they have the ability to get those two legal opinions meshed some way?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Through you, if I may respond to select person Malcolm McNabb. So the HDC has removed the special act review from the scope. The HDC is not currently in support of modifying the act. We don't believe there's a basis for it. And frankly, we're concerned it could turn into like a form of constitutional review. And all of a sudden you've got all kinds of changes happening. So we've been advised by the Mass Historical Commission that the special act should not be altered unless it's 130% necessary. With respect to the attorney reviews, that's something this independent review doesn't address. It's outside the scope. This is an opportunity for an independent party to survey all the parties involved, the advisory groups, the staff, the HDC, and determine where there may be consensus and move forward with the advisory boards consistent with the HDC support. I think there was one other one in there. I'm not sure what it was. Please.
Again, Ray Paul for the record. So to your other question or concern about would we be just getting information that we're already aware of? I think the issue right at the moment is we have a lot of opinions, board members, members of the public, so many opinions about what the failings of the HCC are, why we're so far behind on the agenda. And I think in order for us to get real resolution as to how to move forward, a third party, and that was recommended by the select board, I thought it was a fabulous idea. When I heard that that was the recommendation, I said, hallelujah, finally we can take this to an outside source who can look at everything objectively and interview all the critical members of this puzzle and be able to give us objective recommendations about how to move forward in a more efficient way. So I do think, again, it's been said a number of times tonight, I think that this would be a very worthwhile process. Thank you.
Right. Well, if I obviously have to support it if the HDC itself wants it. I guess the question is, if you listen to all the issues, is it a historic issue? Is it a preservation issue? Is it more of an organizational communication management kind of issue? And is this particular organization the correct organization to do this assessment? Because it's an organizational conceptual. How do you work? That it's a work problem.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yep, sure. Just on the, in response. So this organization, we felt, I happen to also chair the HCC's organizational focus committee for the last several years. Now as an elected member this first year. The idea that this group would be able to come in and they have such a intimate relationship and understanding of what historic district commissions are all about is, we believe, very important against the backdrop of their national experience with organizational matters for such historic district commissions and other similar entities. It is primarily a matter of HDC exerting its authority and understanding its role. One of the items that's included in the scope as revised is development of a training manual of sorts to institutionalize and move forward for both staff and current and future commissioners on these points that are so important to our day-to-day, or I should say week-to-week operations, so that we can carry forward with those in a meaningful way consistently, which is also one of the things the HDC is working to focus on. So we believe this organization would be helpful. And then just one last comment. If you do decide to move forward, I have one procedural comment I'd like to add to the scope, but I'll hold on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything?
John, you have Ginger at the mic.
Oh, yes, Ginger.
Hello, Virginia Andrews, One Stone Alley. I just wanted to say that I've been to a lot of HDC meetings over the last 6 years and 3 months. And while I don't always agree with their decisions, if I had to pick two institutions that had made and kept Nantucket livable through my lifetime, well, one is the Conservation Foundation, obviously, but the other would be the HDC. So I think they're tremendously important, and that they're working through, they understand the difficulties that they're facing better than anyone else. And I think that I would hope that you would support their proposal for the review, because a lot of people, I think, I've heard a lot of times people say, Well, how did the HDC allow that? Which everyone says unless it happens to be their project. So I'd really like to see the HDC maintain their independence and work with this particular group to help their process, because I think, as I said, that, you know, they've spent a lot of time attempting to make themselves more effective against a strong headwind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rick Atherton had his hand up, but it just went away. Oh, Rick Atherton.
Dawn, thank you.
Yes. Hi, Rick.
Just a very quick general comment. I think the important issue here is the independence of the HDC from staff perspectives and oversight and management. And I think the article proposed by Diane Coombs is related to this. And I would hope the supervisory person of the entity you hope to pursue the study is not just a member of Plus, but has some independence from their oversight. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Are board members satisfied? Stephen Welch, did you have something you wanted to amend or add? Did you comment that?
I'll just add real quickly, and then Joe Toppin came to the mic.
Okay.
On page 134, I think of 143, this actually speaks to Rick Atherton's point. Basically, there's a couple of notations where the organization, the association, has put in reference to staff, meeting and conducting discussions with staff. This is an important piece of work for the community. I believe we have staff support and certainly the HDC support. We would like to just note that wherever staff are consulted and in developing timelines or planning the process or the outcomes, that a designee of the HDC will be incorporated into that text. We feel that, you know, given the importance, that's part of it, but it also helps to alleviate any perception that this is somehow a power grab or of some sort of that. I mean, you know, I'm just trying to refer back to discussion we hear in the community. Frankly, I want to again thank the select board for, you know, you got a kind of a bristly couple of topics that came in and you went towards an independent review, and we think ultimately that will be very helpful and very successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you want to go?
Joe Topham's at the mic. Why don't we?
No, go ahead.
No, I'd like to hear from you first, Joe.
Okay,
Please.
so Joseph Topham. So pre-COVID, I was on the Concom and everything was working fine. Then COVID hit and quickly we jumped on Zoom. We had a little lag and then we caught up, but then I was on the HDC meetings. I was going to Board of Health meetings, and the one that I saw, even the select board meetings watching, but I was watching the HDC start to slow down and get stagnant. And you had people that were technology savvy, then there were other people that were not. And I think there was a real lag. And then when they came out of it, they still had that catch up, and then economic boom and everything just kind of caught up behind them. So they were just doing their best and what they could do. But the HDC is a completely different entity. You have to be sitting in front of them. You have to have conversations. There is a new structure that's in place. I've witnessed in the last 2 weeks. I think it works very well. So I brought up a very touchy subject 2 weeks ago, and they gave my client and myself half an hour to have an open dialogue and you know, discussion. And then they summarize. But last night I was here, I had a brand new project. It was probably 15, 17 minutes of conversation. It was quick, it was concise. They gave me great comments, they gave great feedback. So I think they're turning a corner, which is great. But I love that they are saying, hey, we're fixing something, but it'd be great to have someone come on the outside. So I just want to say I applaud them for what they're doing, and I just wanted to come and say, I'm behind them. So
Thank you, Joe. That's good feedback.
Yeah, and
Brooke?
I attended the HDC meeting last night for about the first hour or so. And, well, what I observed is a board that has an inordinate amount of work that's trying desperately to tread water on some of these organizational issues on top of the number of the boom in applications. And I think we need to throw professional resources their way to help them. They've already put in an incredible amount of work into getting us this far between staff and the HDC. And I think we should support them with this project. And I think it will, in some ways, third-party facilitated dialogue and conversation and collection of information and opinions and synthesis is a model that we're moving toward, hopefully successfully on some other thorny issues. And I think I applaud everybody. I've heard some, around this, and this feels very collaborative and cooperative, and I want to support it 100%.
Yeah, I support it as well. I think, but I think people realize it's a state-created independent entity, and which is what Steve was saying earlier. And I think it didn't feel like that when, there was a decree made and the boards were canceled. And the HDC wasn't happy with that, because we've got a couple different letters that got us here. And so I think that if this helps, sort of work through those issues, I think that's a positive. If this is a way to, sort of, solidify some of those changes, it may not be such a positive. So I think that, I hope that this is an open, I hope there's an open mind into this, Part of what it says here, the HCC agrees further to complete the review, only the following are to be interviewed. So it's the current commissioners and a random sample of past commissioners. It's current staff and a random sample of past staff, and a random selection of applicants and agents. So I'm asking, is that substantial? It's sort of interesting to see only the following are going to be interviewed. That sort of gives me a little pause, but I just, I think that this is important to, to the island. And I hope there's a little bit more, sort of openness and publicness there. The other thing I would like to see in here is a review of any bias. Is there anything that's happening on the HDC where people are in a difficult situation because of the, position they're in on the HDC and with their jobs? And is that being, taken care of? And I don't see that really in here. Maybe it's just assumed, but I think that, sort of that's one of the complaints I hear occasionally from some of the architects who are afraid to speak up. So I think that should be on the table, and that, it's a difficult topic, but that should be discussed, and so I applaud everybody. I think we're going the right way. I think a review is important, but I want to make sure it's a actual true review and it deals with some of the ugly sideness that might be there. Maybe it's not there and I'm just reading stuff into it that I shouldn't, but I think that it's, this can't be, we can't be driving this for a result. And there was one other point. Oh, and I think the legal, sort of the independence part for me goes to the legal review. Where there was a second review from a lawyer, and I think Malcolm had asked, has town council spoken to the other council? And I don't think that's happened yet. And I think that to me is important, because that is crucial for the independence of the HDC. It's crucial that they, that something doesn't, a decree doesn't happen again, or, I just think that type of thing it sort of undermines faith in it, undermines the ability to do it. And so I hope that those two things are solidified. My reading of it, I believe that there's a lot more autonomy on the HDC than we were than the HDC was led to believe. And if the HDC wants to make those changes, and votes fully as a board of 5 to make that, then I'll accept those. But I don't think that should be layered on by staff. The staff should be working for the HDC, not the HDC, not the other way around. And I'm not saying the staff doesn't do that, because they do. They work really hard, but I think that's so I think we have to, that has to be part of, I'd like to know, I would love to have the lawyers talk at some point, because I think that you're not going to solve something without speaking about it. But so those are my points for now. Thank you.
Okay. I have one more hand raised, Angus McLeod.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been following along the meeting tonight for this discussion, and I really don't want to get in the way of it. I do support an independent review. I'm wearing a few hats tonight, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission and former board member of the Historic Structures Advisory Board and the Sconset Advisory Board. To Matt's point, I think it's important that people in the preservation world on Nantucket, certainly preservation planner, but also MPT and advisory board members and the historical commission get to participate in interviews with this independent review. Those are, I believe, important perspectives to have in this review. And it's been a long wait since August when the advisory boards were disbanded. So I'm happy to hear the select board discussing anything HDC. I know you have a lot of items on your schedule, but the advisory boards are still looking forward to having town support and being, fully functioning as they once were, where, members of the public, agents, and homeowners can participate in the meetings rather than them just sort of being with the advisory group meeting on its own. And the last thing is the, yeah, I've lost it. But anyway, I appreciate you discussing this. And as far as the advisory boards, anything that you can do to support them sooner than later would be appreciated. I'm just remembering what it was. Back to Matt's point about who's participating in this review is, the previous town council didn't have an issue with the advisory boards, and independent council hasn't had issue with it. So I think that there should be a discussion with the attorneys to be able to resolve this issue that seemed like it was working fine before. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we add to number 4? Can we add part of the review be members of some of the advisory boards so that perspective is gathered? Is that something?
I mean, maybe we could add something like other stakeholders within.
Yeah, I'm on page
Board preservation.
5.
Yeah,
number 4 at the bottom.
I don't have it in front of me. I don't have 2 screens.
John,
That's
if I
agreeing
may,
to who's going to be
Yeah.
interviewed. Is that?
Brooke?
I'd like to ask the HDC representatives here whether they considered the advisory boards as part of the group participating in this, and or was it not? Was it considered and not included, or
not
was it
considered?
not considered? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to spit out.
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
A few quick things on the question Brooke has posed. We did consider it. You haven't seen it because it's in the draft. I haven't completed yet. We weren't sure where this was going to go. There were some minor modifications to the scope. The advisory boards were considered. Certainly no reason not to interview some of, not all of them. At least I would suggest the chairs or the vice chairs. We do have buried within the scope in context the concept of the value of the advisory groups to the HTC, and I fully anticipated, and I believe I can speak for the HTC, we fully anticipated that the advisory groups would have some, they would have to be interviewed and to understand what their perceived value is from their side as well as from the HTC's.
So I would say if we added and other stakeholders as determined necessary by the consultants.
Yeah.
I think that would work.
So it leaves room for.
Yeah, I think it's important because that's where some of the sort of the swirling is coming from. Let's attack it head on.
Yeah.
That's where some of the unhappiness is. Let's address it.
And when we did have the meeting with Ray and myself and some of the staff, that was one of the things that we did talk about, the advisory boards, but then also the way that they function in relationship to all the other systems. There have been some changes over the years on how their input's been done and so forth, and there might be some ways to streamline the process if they are reconstituted. But with those kind of comments, would everyone possibly be ready for a motion?
I just have one, Madam Chair, just one more question, and then we can get on.
Yes.
It just goes back to the selection of this particular organization as the consultant. Was any other organization considered? Did we have any kind of competition for this that we usually do? That just bothers me a little bit that we only went to one place.
Maybe Holly can address that.
Quite frankly, they are the commissioner mentors in the country. So there's no other organization that could do this type of thing. These people work with, they're respected from the National Park Service, National Alliance of, and actually National, let's see, I can't even think, ACHP, at the federal level. There's so many different organizations that they work with. So to answer, no, but there's no other organization. And I understand that that might be a good thing to do, but at the same time, finding an organization that does not know preservation or how the functionalities of a historic district, I would err the edge of caution of doing that. We're wanting not only the functionality, but also what the commission and the functionality of the HDC and staff, what we are bound by within the preservation world, if that makes any sense. These are the top notch people. This is what they do. They mentor people.
I agree they may be that, but my point goes back to what I expressed before, that it seems to me the issue is organization and management, not preservation. And there's certainly 1,000 organizational consulting groups. And I'll bet you right on this island, we could find somebody that would probably do it for $1 and save us a lot of money. We have a lot of talent on this island and we are constantly getting consultants. So something I think we should start thinking about is looking at what's right here on the island. So I agree this is probably a great preservation organization, but I think your issue is one of communication and management and organization, not preservation.
Do you mind? Thank you. Just stop again. I hate that screen. So, on the Concom, I did Zoom. Planning board, I'm on now. NPDC, crack, BPAC, et cetera, et cetera. HTC is a completely different world. You need this professional group. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Holly selected a really good group. I did a little research on them. That's the right one. The HTC just doesn't function. It's different than your board. It's really bizarre, but it is a really hands-on, touch-feely, tactile, spatial, everything that goes on to that. And being on the planning board and NPC, it's not that, or the Concom. It's I don't want to say two-dimensional, but the HTC works in a three-dimensional world. You really need someone that understands what they're going to be looking at. You can't just go get the lowest bid or the highest bid or whatever it is. You need someone that's specific to that. You need someone that's going to come in and know exactly what they're looking at. Because if you don't, you're going to have someone taking us in a different direction or not truly understanding what is going on, or architects is a very personal thing. So, you know, I went to the ACC last night. I got my butt kicked, but I left and I understand what everyone was saying and how they were presenting it. So I didn't take it personally, but at the same point, it was not the best of nights, but I understand where everyone's coming from. You have to have someone that's going to enter the room and understand from a distance and, you know, close up what exactly they're looking at. Otherwise, it's a waste of town's money. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
I don't want to get too far into micromanaging this. If Holly, who is our preservation planner and knows how the office is run, recommends this organization and the HDC is happy with it, I think we should move forward and get this process underway. I think it is definitely an organizational and a process question, but the whole sort of basis behind that is the preservation of our historic resources and the servicing of the community. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, if I'm prepared to make a motion.
Yes.
If we're ready.
Yeah.
I think we're hearing a lot of support from the room. If we're ready, I'm not sure. So I'm going to move that we approve this project with the addition of the item D under number 4 of other stakeholders as deemed necessary, and that we approve this proposal.
Is there a second? Oh, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, by roll call, Matt Fee.
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That passes unanimously. Thanks everyone for your work on this. We look forward to the feedback.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, folks.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
being at the meeting too. Last up on the agenda is committee reports. Are there anything for, is there anything further tonight? Excuse me.
Nope.
No.
Everyone's shaking their head.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call. Matt Fee.
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Thank you all very much. Good meeting. Out before 8. With quite a bit accomplished.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
I'll see you guys next week. Bye.